The Washington Post was approached by a woman named Jamie Phillips who made inflammatory charges against Roy Moore, saying the Alabama Senate candidate impregnated her when she was 15 and drove her to have an abortion. But the paper started digging and suspected it was a sting, especially after seeing a GoFundMe page on which Phillips talked about taking a new job. Post reporter Stephanie McCrummon confronted her.
It says that you're moving to New York and that you've accepted a job to work in the conservative media movement to combat the lies and deceit of the liberal MSM.
I was looking to take a job last summer in New York, but it fell through.
That wasn't true. A Post reporter later saw Phillips going into the offices of Project Veritas, run by conservative activist James O'Keefe, who specializes in stings designed to embarrass mainstream news outlets.
I have to run to this meeting right now.
Okay.
And
does Jamie Phillips work for Project Veritas? Did you guys send her to speak, to pose as a victim of Roy Moore to the Washington Post?
15 minutes late.
They did later speak. Joining us now from New York, Noah Rothman, associate editor of Commentary Magazine. So how did the Washington Post, in your view, handle these explosive and fake allegations from an undercover conservative activist who was trying to trap the Post reporters into saying incriminating things about Roy Moore that could be captured on videotape?
They handled it very well. They've been very transparent about the process that they used to uncover this individual. It's kind of a sloppy operation to begin with, but they demonstrated how they uncovered her identity and how they pursued this story and had a bunch of other reporters on it, not just the interviewer, but a variety of other print reporters. And then when Mr. O'Keefe was exposed, he put out these videos of other Post reporters in candid settings describing being very professional, not getting ahead of the Russia investigation, for example, and being a little critical of their editorial side for being overly critical of the president. If this was an attempt to show bias on the part of the Washington Post, it backfired spectacularly.
Yeah, let me just mention that because he thought it was a great gotcha. National security reporter Dan Lamoth said the news side is trying to critically call bull when there's some bull involving Donald Trump, but also give him credit where there's credit. Which sounds like a good approach to me. You say that James O'Keefe, controversial guy, he's got one criminal conviction for this sort of thing, based this whole undercover sting on an assumption, you call it an ignorant assumption, of how the mainstream media work and whether a paper like the Post would rush into print with this half-baked allegation.
Yeah, I can only imagine that the assumption of ignorance and malice on the part of Mr. O'Keefe and his colleagues drove them to send this compromised actress to play a role for which they advertised online to a bunch of professional fact-checkers and assumed that it would get through. You can only assume that that would work based on your notion that these people are acting in very bad faith. Similarly, these face-saving efforts, these videos of Post reporters undercover, were only on the assumption of ignorance on the part of the audience, because an audience might not know that reporters and editorial side of a newspaper have a kind of a conflicting relationship at times. And it's sort of your job to explain to an audience that there's a distinction between a reporter and an editorial side of a newspaper.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are skeptical about that, but I can tell you that that is true. Now, this was an effort, obviously, to use lies and deception. Jamie Phillips had a phony name, phony job, trying to really help the Moore campaign if it had been successful. And it was originally off the record, but executive editor of the Post, Marty Barron, said, you know, if you lie to us, if you deceive, then the off-the-record agreement goes out the window. You wrote something in Commentary that really caught my eye. You said that, tragically, conservative media activists are becoming the debased partisan creatures they once resolved to combat. What did you mean?
It was the assumption on the part of many who got into this business, including myself, that your effort is to create a more literate media-consuming audience, an audience of media consumers who cannot be fooled by omissions and bias on the part of mainstream outlets. When activists operate like Mr. O'Keefe did, in a way to exploit ignorance in order, not educating the audience about what the difference is between editorial side and reporting side, when you're actively trying to court that ignorance in order to advance an agenda, you've become the partisan creature you've once resolved to combat, and that's corrupt.
And you're saying this obviously as a conservative. And look, I'm not saying that mainstream media are unbiased or that the coverage is always fair or perfect or not sensationalized, but in this case, the Post did the right thing, looked into it, and found out that it just wasn't true. Noah Rothman, thanks very much for joining us from New York this morning. Great to see you.
Thank you.